I want to say welcome to Anowa Adjah here. I Never Knew TV. What's going on?
Nothing much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're going to get right into it, right? And first question I have is, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when trying to stay consistent with your health?
Balance. Balancing it all, like it all. Because for the most part, I have twin boys. I'm a mom, and I'm an entrepreneur. Um, I'm all the things. And pretty much I'm pivotal in a lot of people's lives, a lot of things. And so it was a major challenge finding balance amongst with all those things. And obviously, with those challenges, because you start off already having that imbalance, the stability is not there. It's really shaky. So a lot of things are contingent upon you just really trying to maintain, be emotionally disciplined, staying focused. But overall, I think the biggest challenge was just managing all the tasks that I had to do on a daily basis. That's one of the biggest challenges, not just for me, but for a lot of women.
Do you believe because you have a background as an athlete that helps, that gives you a kind of a more experience with balancing your schedule compared to other women who don't have that background?
Absolutely. I'd be lying to you I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't, because just, one of the thresholds of being a very good athlete is discipline. Is discipline. Is getting up, is practicing, is remaining avid in your workout routine outside of practice. So absolutely. I think I had a bit of a cheat code there because I was surrounded by nothing but athletes.
Unfortunately, I notice a lot of athletes kind of stop working out when they stop playing sports. Why do you think some people maintain their health and stay in shape while many kind of lose themselves?
Burnout. Burnout. You got to find a balance amongst it all. I like to see athletes sometimes playing video games, going out, having fun, reading books, you know, doing other things besides sports. A lot of times, I had a very supportive family. Obviously, they were like, okay, you need to practice, you need to do that. They were encouraging me to be good at what I was doing, but I had a life outside of sports. And I think that that's a major issue sometimes. And so when they finally get to the collegiate level, which I did, and they're like trying to figure out if they're going to take it to the next level or they're just going to, sort of, leave it to the wayside, they're tired. They're exhausted. They're checked out. They're like at that point, and even the professional level, you'll hear a lot of athletes, some athletes don't stay in shape. It's not everybody is the same way. You'll see it could go 50-50. You'll see a good amount of professional athletes that maintain their figure, that stay in great condition. Then you'll have the other half that completely falls off. It really is, I think, for the younger generation or just people in the collegiate level, I think it's more of a burnout type of situation. They're tired, they're exhausted, and so they just don't want to do anything affiliated with fitness for a while. So I think that that has a lot to do with it.
I really agree with that because I hear that's a big complaint with youth now. And I do notice people don't know it takes so much to even get to the collegiate level. That's what they don't understand. Like just getting there takes so much. And that could play a big role in the burnout.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's an incredible amount of sacrifice, and people just need to be realistic about it. So I think some of the challenges, even with this generation now, is, a lot of us had other things or other entities driving us to pursue athleticism, whether it was, going pro and being able to provide for your family, just getting out of the hood, there were other things that really pushed us. Whereas now, if you are fortunate enough, you and I are fortunate enough to be able to send our kids to pricey schools and camps and all these kinds of things, you sort of have to meet them where they are because they don't understand survival in that type of way. So it's other things that are navigating that source.
What are the biggest mental and physical barriers that keep black women, especially single mothers, from prioritizing fitness? And what are some things they can do to overcome those barriers?
Black women are exhausted. We have become, and I'm so glad with therapy and mental health, all of that coming to the forefront and people talking about it openly, really understand how we have sort of become the sacrificial lambs. And a lot of our families, we have become the end all be all in a lot of our families. And a lot of times we're just exhausted. But I think the biggest thing is how we perceive or how we look at fitness, right? Or we look at staying in shape instead of looking at it as another task. Whether, because I think that that's what a lot of women do. They're like, it's another thing that they have to do. We have to start to shift our mindset towards looking at it as self-care. It's self-care. Taking care of yourself is self-care. And I just think that sometimes it's access, having the funds, it's the mindset, it's your surroundings, it's your environment. If I speak, from my personal standpoint, I grew up with nothing but athletes. My mom, my mom was a gym rat. It, it was inevitable that one way or another that it was going to rub off on me some of that behavior. And so if you are not familiar with it, you have not been surrounded with it, it's a lot harder to transition into this mindset of prioritizing fitness. But it really needs to be a priority because at the end of the day, it's your health. Without good health, you can't do anything. The money, you can't spend the money if you're in a hospital bed, and that's just shifting the mindset. So, but I think the biggest thing is if we look at it as self-care, as us taking care of ourselves, instead of looking at it as a duty or another task or another responsibility, it won't be as challenging.
So I watched the show, right? I was recently with my parents in Jamaica, and we were there, and somehow we watched a 600 pound show. I never saw this before.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, first time I ever saw it. It's pretty bugged out. But the thing is, man, it really gave me a deeper understanding and a deeper level of compassion for people who struggle with weight, right? So you have the eye that they're lazy, but we disregard the fact that there's like, yeah, the food addiction part, and there's like a mental thing that they're struggling with that's leading to a person to get to that point. So I think we need to be more, not condone, but more empathetic because like they're not necessarily, they're struggling. They're like really struggling to get to that point.
Absolutely. There's a lack of empathy for people who struggle with food addiction. Food addiction is a real thing. It's an absolute real thing. And a lot of times it's generational.
You don't have to be obese to be a food addict.
No,
All right. I just
absolutely
want to
not. You do not need to be 600 pounds to be a food addict. Let's be very, very clear. But I think that sometimes it's just overwhelming for them. There's the food addiction, everything else. There's not really having that concrete support. And then it's just the judgment. They have to overcome all of that to somehow find the ambition to get in shape. That's a major struggle. That's very, very difficult. And I think that it is very important to have a level of empathy with people who do struggle a lot of times because 9 times out of 10 is something deeper. I always say it's something deeper. That's why a lot of times I like to sit down with my clients and I let them just go. There's something in my spirit, I don't know, they be sharing everything with me. And a lot of times, whatever their issue is deeply rooted in the traumas that they experienced as a child and going and seeking food for comfort, things like that. So it's beyond that. We don't know people's stories.
I read an article. I forget the author. It was a compilation of authors, but basically they were saying that not all, but some women who experience sexual abuse younger, they purposely, well, subconsciously add on weight thinking that it would protect them. They don't know why they put on the weight, but they purposely, subconsciously put on extra weight thinking that it would protect them.
Yeah, that's deep. It's deep. It's just, there's so many layers to that conversation. Abuse is actually like one of the I wouldn't even say the number one factor in it, but is one of the main factors in a lot of these situations with people who struggle with food addiction. And obviously, it's just parenting, a lot of times their parents. That's why I said generational. That's how they learn to adapt. And so they teach their kids unknowingly the same thing. I have rarely seen kids that struggled with food or were significantly obese or overweight not have a parent who has struggled or is currently struggling with the same issue. Unfortunately, it usually goes hand in hand because they're not informed or educated on how, or even realizing that this is bigger than food.
And their environment will produce the same outcome because they have the
Exactly.
same eating habits.
Exactly.
I think that self-love plays a big role in the barrier of partaking in self-care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've worked with clients that literally did not want to go to the gym because they were scared of how other people would see them. They did not want to be seen in the
And I could
gym.
see that as intimidating, like looking at it from another perspective. I could see how it could be a little intimidating.
Exactly. Exactly. So they're like, okay, they didn't want to even put themselves on forefront. They knew nothing about working out. And so they didn't know how to lift weights or anything. It just became overwhelming. It became daunting. So that was one of the main things. But what I had to say to them, I'm like, you could go walking. Exercise is not limited to the gym. And I think that people have to understand that, especially now with the transition and the trends that health has made, everything is online now. Everything is online. So it doesn't always have to be an economic situation that is keeping you back. You could literally take a walk every single day. But I think that it's just about shifting the mindset of what's important. Because I think it's just like, especially right now with the economy, that people like they're just trying to get by. They're trying to pay their bills, all that kind of stuff. The last thing they're thinking in their mind is like the gym. But if they understand that that's self-care, that's also a priority, that's your health, it changes everything. So I think that that's just a big thing. The self-love aspect about it is that you have to love yourself enough to take care of yourself. And I just think that people look at it from a superficial standpoint instead of looking at it at it from a holistic standpoint, like you're really taking care of not just your body, your mind, everything else. So I think education is just a big thing. Informing people, people meeting them where they at and letting them know, understanding like, look, you really need to stay on point. You have a history of diabetes. You have a history. Your family has a history of high blood pressure. Right now, that understanding why it's important, maybe in particular circumstances for them to prioritize it, but more or less, it's a mental release. It's a decompression. So, but self love has everything to do with it. You just want to take care of yourself. I see people that just like, I'm tired of not looking at myself in the mirror. I'm tired. They're limiting their activities with their children because they don't want to be seen in certain outfits. They don't want to go on the beach. They don't want to do things. So you're not even living life. Your quality of living is diminishing. So I think that that's important. I think it's like the pinnacle of it all. I think it's extremely important to love yourself through it.
Speaking about self-love, right? Can you speak about your journey towards self-love in regards to what's that like, so sisters can get a firsthand account of someone who's experienced that?
Okay. Well, it was a journey. Okay, it was a journey. I'm an 80s baby, proud. And so like from the 80s baby, 90s kid, it was just a different era. So at that time, it wasn't a lot of women that looked like me in essence like if I watched television and they talked about health and fitness and all that, there weren't women that looked like me or were not praised or honored or supported. So it was a challenge. And also being African, being dark skinned, it was just a whole thing, the features, everything else. And, when I was in the city in Brooklyn, New York, it was a lot different. It was a melting pot. So I felt a lot more at home. But then when I moved to the suburbs, that's when things shifted for me. And so I was really having a struggle finding my place. And that's when I turned to sports because I was taller than most women. I was like 5'9", 5'8" in like sixth grade. Um, yeah, I was tall. I was tall. And so thank God my parents were like, okay, y'all not going to stay in this house and drive us crazy. When we moved to Jersey, they were like, we're putting you in something. And obviously, back in the day, it was just like, okay, you tall, basketball, right? And I took a huge interest to it, not only because I realized I was like, okay, I'm pretty good at this, but there were other women that somewhat looked like me in a sense. They were tall, they were built, they had athletic builds. So I felt more at home in the spaces of competing in sports and stuff like that because there were more women that were taller, had more athletic defined features and all that kind of stuff. But the challenge is, it's like you're not playing sports 24 hours in a day. And so I think after that season in my life ended, I was trying to find my place. And I was just saying to myself, I had a PR degree, shout out to Temple University, public relations journalism. I said to myself, I said, you know, this is great, but everybody keeps on asking me, what do I do to stay in shape? How do I look the way that I look? All this kind of stuff. And I felt that, okay, this could be I said, well, I could show people how to do this. And that's when I transitioned over to fitness. So I think that it was very, very challenging initially, just even finding my place in the world, because at that time, the only person that I can relatively compare myself to, or other people would compare me to, was Serena Williams. That was it. And so I really had to dig deep within myself to find what made me unique and stand on it. It was tough.
Do you remember the point where you really started to become comfortable with yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, it might sound a little strange, but I'm gonna just be honest with y'all. I always looked a little bit older for my age, in sense of because I was tall, because I was a little bit more curvy and athletic. So, obviously, I mean, this is a real issue. I'm just putting it out there. It was like people that were a little bit older than me took more appreciation to it. Like the people in my generation were looking at me like this big girl, like I was just, like this foreign object. I don't know. It was strange. But it tended to be people that were a little bit older than me that were, athletes themselves, or in spaces where they took a appreciation, say, hey, you have an amazing body. You have this and that. And I was like, oh, okay. Oh, okay. I do look, And so some of that validation that I got, that, okay, I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with me. Maybe I'm just a little bit more developed than some of the girls my age, but I have a great body. I have this, I have that. So it wasn't really, to be honest with you, I'm just being brutally honest. It was really more or less receiving validation from people outside of my little circle of people that were just like, you have an amazing body, you're in great shape and all that kind of stuff. And obviously when I was in the space of playing sports, I received some of that as well.
In your experience working with clients, right? Have you seen situations where a partner knowingly or unknowingly sabotages a woman's fitness goals? And if you did, how can women navigate that dynamic?
It happens a lot more than we realize. Insecurity. Insecurity, I saw it all the time. It was the number one thing that I would ask a lot of the clients that I work with. Every time they sit down, I'm like, what brought you here? The minute they say, well, my husband or my boyfriend, red flag. Red flag. I'm saying to myself, okay, this is going to be a bit of a challenge, right? Because then I always have to tap in deeper. Okay, so was it a you thing or was it them thing? They're like, okay, well, it was me, but it was like a going back and forth. So the person would feel like, I do need to go and get into shape. I need to do this for myself. But then they would feel a level of sometimes discouragement from their partners because they weren't on the same track. Like I remember she's like, I'm making healthy foods and he's bringing home takeout and
I'm
fast
trying to eat that.
foods. So it has posed huge issues in a lot of relationships. And the number one thing that I always say to them is like, obviously I spoke about insecurity. I'm like, communication. Obviously you can't go into people's marriages and tell them like, oh, I leave. But I'm like, okay, communication. And I would say to them, I'm like, I think you need to emphasize that this is important for you and that you need a supportive partner. Like, listen, you don't have to tell them to jump on the bandwagon with you. That's their choice. But if you are able to communicate to them and say, listen, I really want to lose this weight. I would feel a lot better about myself. But it's hard. It's really challenging when you bring home these foods. So I try to tell them to have this communication with their partners. And in some instances, it has worked. And there have been partners that actually jumped on the bandwagon. And I took on husbands as well as the wives. But then there were just partners that were just completely, I wouldn't say against, but they were just not supportive. And a lot of that just stemmed from their level of insecurity, them seeing their bodies transform. And then there's a whole nother level of confidence that comes when you start to see your body look good and you're starting to wear certain outfits now, you're comfortable about it. And your partner's not really liking it because they're rooted in the person that you were before versus the person you are now. It's a very hard transition because usually at that space is a lower, I wouldn't say a lower vibrational space because this sounds very insensitive, but they're not at their peak of self-esteem or confidence. So they're sort of like doormats, a lot of them. They're coming in, they're doing everything for everybody else, and they're just like, okay, finally they just said to themselves, enough is enough. I matter, let me take care of myself. And when people are used to you operating from a certain space, not only are you shifting that, but you're physically transforming, you're physically ascending, you have this level of confidence. It can be a hard pill to swallow. So it can be challenging, definitely.
And I think that needs to come up more in the conversation of fitness. Because if you do have a partner and they're not supportive or your inner circle is not supportive, I kind of see that as you have your inner struggles, but it seems to be a big form of discouragement why people quit.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think people need to understand like I don't know how to say this, but I remember going online and they were like the best couples, like athletes make great couples. Like if you have a partner that was active, like or an athlete or somebody who's active or involved, they make great partners. They understand versus, and I'm not saying that it can't work either way because there are people have never worked out a day in their life and they take on fitness and living healthier and then their partner jumps on. So there are circumstances like that. But for the most part, when you deal with a partner like who has also been an athlete, you get it. It's a level of discipline, a level of no nonsense, because you're like, okay, we got to get into tape, we got to do this, and you just sort of snap into it. Whereas somebody who is not used to or has not been acclimated to that space, that could be a lot challenging for them.
And you brought up a next great point, right, in regards to this athletic background. I think a lot of things that you have a privilege for in regards to taking constructive criticism, having very hard conversations, these are skill sets most people don't really get. And I think that, well, for me, having Caribbean parents
Right.
and being an athlete, I was just exposed to those stuff from early. But as I go into society, I notice a lot of people struggle with that. But I have to realize that they haven't had experience with that.
Exactly. And there has to be a level of empathy there. I mean, I'm be
Yeah.
honest with you, like that was a shift that I had to make personally because, I think what softened me up was having kids. But I was just really like, sort of like a militant soldier. My mentor was a Navy SEAL. So I just really didn't have patience or any level of empathy for someone who just did not prioritize fitness. But I now understand that there's other factors involved that sort of discourage other people. Like I came from, I'm Nigerian. I mean, my parents were like not only educated, like you're going to finish this. I don't care what you say, like you won't eat today. You know what I mean? Like they're not playing withholding food. You know what I mean? Like my parents were no joke. And yeah, sometimes it got to an extreme, but it it really ingrained that level of discipline within me. And so I had to learn to have patience with other people in regards to that as well.
Definitely, definitely. All right. Chronic stress is something that many black men and women carry, but we're talking about the sisters right now. Whether it's from Superwoman Syndrome or what Dr. William A. Smith calls racial battle fatigue. How does this level of stress impact black women's physical health, and what are some ways to combat it?
Let's be very, very clear. There are different numbers out there, but the moral of the story is the level of stress in black women is significantly higher than in other races. Okay. Stress is a major, major factor. Not just stress, there's age, there's generational traumas, there's a level of issues that contribute to our families, particularly black families, dealing with stress. Pretty much higher cortisol levels. It slows down everything. It makes everything a lot more challenging and difficult. And obviously, when you have issues with that, that can contribute to heart disease, um, high blood pressure, a number of other factors. So it affects your sleep, affects everything. So the number one thing that I always tell people is that first and foremost, your foods are everything. A lot of times they're focused more on the physical aspect of saying, okay, I got to go to the gym, I got to work out and everything else. But like I say to people, I'm like, you can work out all day, every day, but if your food is not supporting the situation, you're basically you're walking uphill. It's an uphill battle. So the biggest thing that I say a lot of times with that type of situation is that you got to find your happy place. Okay. You got to find your happy place amongst it all. And it's not just a fitness thing, because I think that sometimes people just do not enjoy the process. They do not enjoy it. So it is very discouraging for them to embark on doing anything physically related to like lifting weights or anything else. But what I've learned to do is sometimes meet people where they at. Find out what makes them, find out the things that they enjoy. And so I am very big on correlating not only physical wellness, but also, mental. So I say to them, okay, why don't you go for a walk? Yeah, I go for a walk, play music. I'm like, try a meditative walk, try this, try that. There's so many different avenues to take it right now with the way fitness has transcended. So I always say, what are the things that you enjoy? You enjoy dancing? Okay, they have these online challenges here. They have this going on. Like I try to find things outside of just the discipline of them working out, okay, creating a program and stuff like that, but things for them to also look forward to. So the balance of saying, okay, well, you're going to do a resistance based workout program for 3 days, but like 2 days do Zumba or go walking. Finding a balance within all, because I think that the whole thing of the matter is the mindset of us black women feeling as if this is another duty, another responsibility, and everything else. And so stress a lot of times is from us feeling overwhelmed and for us just taking too many things on. But when you understand and you shift the mindset and say, you're taking care of yourself. This is your time. This is your time. You don't have to just go to the gym. You can go to the sauna. You don't go to the pool. Have fun with it. It doesn't have to be just this level of task. And also what I say to them is that you matter. So I say to them like, if you're not okay, nothing else will be okay. If you don't understand, if you're not running properly, if you're not functioning properly, nothing around you is going to function. So I think a lot of times with the stress, it's self-induced. It's not just the level of responsibility that we have. It's sometimes our mindsets of what we place on ourselves unknowingly, because that's what we're used to doing.
Can you talk more about self-induced stress? Because I'm a big, I speak about that a lot. A lot of people don't acknowledge, like, when we analyze it, like, I kind of brought it on myself. We have life stress, but I really try to minimize self-induced stress in my journey.
We take too many things on. We don't know how to say no. We are so used to, and it's the mom guilt is real, parent guilt is real. Sometimes even doing things for ourselves, we have been made to feel guilty about it. Really, the self-induced stress is just a lack of boundaries. A lack of boundaries, saying no, like I don't have time, I need to do this. Because you can't expect people to prioritize your needs and your wants if you don't do it for yourself. You got to show people how to treat you. So in a sense, like even with family, even with partners, even with kids, like I share with my kids, I'm like, mommy needs a minute. They're like, oh, mom, can we watch it? Okay, go ahead. Mommy needs a minute. So they also understand, because people think that with kids is about what you say. Yeah, 90% of parenting is about what you show your children. It's about what you show your children. And I think that sometimes we just unknowingly take too much on because that's what we're used to. We're used to it. And we put on the strong woman, title and say we can handle it all. And the reality is that we cannot. And that is okay too. So I think we need to balance out our lives, and we need to say no a little bit more. We need to establish boundaries, and we need to let people know what we have going on as well, saying, you know what, I'm going to the gym and this is my time. Hope, respect that. You know what I'm saying? I think if you can't get mad at how people treat you in those spaces, if people are constantly taking from you or asking you to do something, if you keep on saying yes, they don't see any problem with it.
Do you think, like, taking on a lot of stuff goes into the competitive nature of women?
We talk about the particular woman,
Yeah, a particular woman.
the independent woman.
Not necessarily. And I think women on the whole have a very competitive aspect to them we don't speak about enough. And I think that fuels, in my opinion, this fuels this need to accomplish everything. In my observation, I feel like some people would feel like a failure if they said no.
I will say this. It is based on specific circumstances. Now, I think some women are getting keen to it, getting better to it. But overall, I think the biggest issue is the guilt behind it. It's more mental. It's more mental. I had to teach myself that I don't have to get it all done in a day. It's almost like the challenge of it all was heavily correlated with my athletic background. I like to challenge myself. So I'm like, oh, okay, if I could do all this in a day, I feel accomplished. But then I'm tired. I'm of no service to anybody else. So who is it really benefiting? Your ego? Take your ego out of it. Say, I'm tired, And rest is a necessity. It's a necessity. It's not a privilege. It's a necessity. And that's what I think people, you need to understand. Like, it's a part of everything else. You function better when you get more rest. But I think that I remember just sometimes I would sleep and I would feel guilty about it. Like, I could be doing this and I could be doing that. But that I learned through healing, that was a trauma-based response. Is just feeling, even the challenging yourself, is trauma. It's trauma. You feel like if you take the load off, you're being lazy or unproductive. And that's sickening when you think about it. Because sometimes the load is like, instead of doing 10 things in a day, you're doing 5. Come on now. We do too much. So yes, absolutely.
A lot of brothers and sisters, when they reach a certain age, you hear them, they say it's over or they can't do anymore, this and that, right?
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you, uh, for people over 40 who feel overwhelmed, discouraged, or like it's too late, what would you say to motivate them to take control of their health?
According to who? Basically, I think that a lot of this has been driven in the minds of the masses by social media. You know, a lot of times what I say, I think what happens at 40 for a lot of people is okay, because 40 has become that prime age of like, what are you doing? What do you want to be for the rest of your life? And so unknowingly we put that pressure on ourselves. But what I say to them is like, I know it sounds very cliche, but age is really just a number. It really is what you make it. Okay. So if there's things that you're still striving for, if there's things that you still want to accomplish, if there's, you know, things that you want to work on, whether it's health, whether it's mental, if you can still do those things. But I think what we need to be realistic is the fact that hormones change. Our body doesn't feel the same. Collagen, all these kinds of things that happen that are on a decline, quote unquote. We need to just be more informed how we can be better at supporting those factors. So I always say to my clients, do you have a form like a collagen supplement? Are you taking creatine? These kind of things that also help to sort of counteract some of those things that happen as you age. I just think that you just need to be more informed. Like, there's nobody literally stopping you from getting into exceptional shape or doing what you need to do to reach, optimal health. It's really just a mindset. So I just say, like, what do you want your life to look like? Where would you like to be? I have like a general conversation, like a general question that I ask. And a lot of times people are talking about the superficial things, the more tangible things. I'm like, okay, what about you? And that's when it gets real. Well, I don't know. I'm like, well, that's the gist here. You can make it be whatever you want to be. It's just right now, I think it's just understanding that your body is not the same as it was 20 years ago. And just finding basically there are supportive things out here that can help you still stay on track, still stay, avid towards your goals, um, without feeling like, okay, I'm 40 years old, my body doesn't feel the same, and then feeling discouraged. I just think meet people where you at. If you like Zoom, if you like to walk out, you'd like to take walks, you like to go to the park, turn that also into a wellness experience, right? So do something that you enjoy, but also take care of your body. So I think right now, as we age and as we get older, we want to find the joy in things, not just the responsibility. We've been taking care of business for the past 40 years. Now we want to have some fun. And so what I talk to my clients a lot of time, I'm just like, okay, what do you enjoy? Oh, I love dancing. Okay, they got a Zumba class. They have this class. They have this online. They have this. So they're still enjoying the experience. Like a lot of my clients now that I've worked, well, not now, but that I've worked with in the past, enjoy CrossFit. There's something about CrossFit that they just enjoy, the challenges, whatever it is, and they have fun with it. That is the main goal, because if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to be consistent in it. You're not going to do it. So just find the joy in whatever you're doing. So if you're trying to stay healthy, find the joy in that. If there's a class, if there's something, there's just an experience that you like to do every single day or whatever the case may be, do it. But sometimes I think the logical aspect of it is saying, okay, well, if you like to go on walks, let's be a little bit logical here. You need to get off pounds. Why don't you wear a weighted vest? But you're still doing something that you love, but you're also making sure that you're addressing an issue and you're staying active and everything else. So I think while like 40, I think we need to also not just make it another duty, but to continue to prioritize the fact that it is self-care, but to find the joy in it all. So I think that that's what happens. Like, it's just A lot of times when I'm talking to clients that are in their 40s, now it's just about peace. So they're just like, this is my time. This is my time to be by myself, handle my business, whatever the case may be. You focus on that aspect about it, then you can find enjoyment amongst it all. So I think that that's what we need to do.
You know, it's wild, man. Like, I do meditate, like I guess traditional stationary
Yes, I do.
meditation. But I have I find myself meditating while I'm walking. I find myself meditating when I'm working out because I'm so present, and it's just time to yourself. And I think because people they haven't tried working out, they don't understand the physical benefit of it, the mental benefit of it, and the spiritual benefit of it. Because it can really put you at a place where you can really be present. And that's what most people struggle with, being present. You know.
Absolutely. And everything is about education, right? Because sometimes when you're just not informed, you're not informed. There are so many different ways to get into shape now. Yoga, I mean, they have the whole, they're bouncing, they have spin class. There's so many different things to stay in shape. But even just that, I do transcendental meditation. And I just really got into that and I enjoy it. You know, there's so many different ways to embark on a healthier journey that does not involve just lifting heavier weights. It just does not involve that. So I think that you find your peace, like you said, meditation, while you're working out, and that has been your peace of mind. Just really, like I've had to say to people that were not informed about some of the resources available to them. I'm like, there's other things that you can do besides lift barbells. They have run clubs, they have walking clubs, they have this, they have that. They have this dancing thing. You like to dance, and they're like, oh, okay. So I think a lot of that has a lot to do with it. Just being educated on other things to do or other ways to stay in shape is the key as well.
There's a perception that hair, time, and finances are some of the biggest obstacles preventing black women from working out. How valid do you think these concerns are, and how can they realistically be addressed?
Ooh. So I'll be lying to you. I'll be lying to you if I said it wasn't a barrier sometimes, right? In my mind, right? It's really about priorities. And so I will personally say, like, I came here today, I was like, well, I'll work out after the interview because I don't want to mess up my hair. You know what I'm saying? But I think relatively it's about finding the options that work best for you. I think at the end of the day, I get it. It's expensive sometimes to maintain your hair and stuff like that. But there has to be a balance in it all and there's so many different avenues for protective hairstyles, um, different forms of exercise. I say to them a lot of times, I'm like, okay, if you can't do 30 minutes, do 10 minutes. Do something.
So hold on. Women really not working out because of their hair? I thought it was just like cap, as they were saying, the fact that they don't want to work out, but they kind of want to work out, but they're not working out because of their hair.
Listen, this is not nowadays is not a bigger issue now because there's so many different avenues to take it. I mean, with so many of the protective style with wigs and braids and all this kind of stuff. But it does impede on other people's like desire to work out. I have seen women like, I just got my hair done. I don't want to work out. It literally has been that. But they look at it as a barrier instead of just, okay, well, let's find another option that's still where you can still take care of yourself but maintain your hair. I think that I'm not going to say that it's like a crisis now because there's just so many different ways. There's so many different options now for black women, especially with protective styling and wigs and all these kinds of things. But it can discourage some women, because, you know, and this is deep, but they hold on so much to what society perceives. So they don't want to look a certain way. They always want to like there's this stipulation of like they don't want to look they always want to I don't want to say black women, but it is. It's a big crisis of just not now, but always looking like they have it together, put together. But now the great thing about social media, and with all these women getting in the gym, pulling their hair up in ponytails and doing what they need to do, it has now been highly encouraged to work out and just find different options. So I think it's just about having different conversations. In the past, I can definitely say that it was an issue. But I think now, because there's so many different options, even hair wise for us, in terms of maintaining our hair care and working out, that is not as big as it was before. But was it an issue in the past? Absolutely. Absolutely. 20 years prior? Absolutely.
All right, we mentioned a lot about education, right? And the question I have is, should we be teaching young black girls a different relationship with food, beauty, and health than what many of us grew up with?
Absolutely. 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 It starts early. Um, and the sooner the better. I think that, the whole part of the matter that I remember someone saying to me is that they grew up, it was like a love language. Like that's how their mother showed them love, by cooking them a
A lot of
great
people, yeah, yeah.
dish. Hey, it's in a lot of cultures, right? You could say the same thing. I mean, African cultures say, they'll cook a good meal and it's
Very
it's a great.
starchy meal, you know?
Yes.
Very starchy.
Exactly. So that's a good thing. But I think right now is that we have to have real conversations. Like you can still enjoy these foods, is what I say to my sons. We balance everything out. So with kids, it's all about balance. You don't want to just take everything away and say, this is just the way that you need to do it. Because what happens with a lot of kids is that when they get out right, their own, they sort of rebel and they just want to try everything. But when you teach them that there's a balance with it and saying, okay, yeah, you can have your chips these days, or your fried chicken these days, but on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're going to have, soup or salad or, brown rice. So they understand the importance of that. But I think it's just about the education aspect of it, because I think with me primarily, when my mom started to have like blood pressure issues, a lot of that's when she really cut down on the sodium, cut down on everything. So naturally she cut down on sodium. Like she made sure that she didn't have sodium in a lot of the foods that we were eating as well. So it transcended over to the other kids. So I think that it's the balance aspect, but also showing them that they can have the things that they enjoy, but it doesn't necessarily have to be cooked this way, or you don't have to use these particular seasonings, so you don't have to eat it this way. Like you can still enjoy this meal and have all the things with it, but in a healthier manner. So I just think that with my boys personally, I I let them. They have their Lay's chips sometimes. They have their stuff inside the cabinet, but they also have their nuts. They have their almonds. They have, um, they have their salmon. They have everything, but then they have their days where they have juice. They have this. And I understand that some people might discourage, but the biggest thing about it is that kids are very curious and they like to explore, they like to try new things. The last thing you want to do is make it so stringent where they feel like they're missing out. And that's when things can be abused and they can go all the way to the left. And that's not what you want. You just always want to find a fair balance. So it just starts early, just little things. And obviously, just keeping them up and active is also great.
What we
That.
tell the young sisters in regards to their relationship with beauty.
Whew. Young sis in relationship. Oh boy, that's a great question. I would say, in regards to food, that it's not really about the food. It's about how you see it, right? That there are so many wonderful benefits to some of the foods that you're eating, right? And I think with young girls, I would have liked to know sooner about the benefits of ginger or things like that, how it can help them internally. So I think the educational aspect of teaching them about different foods and how it benefits them in an earlier age, whether it's, I think for younger girls, the biggest thing is once they start menstruation, like once they start to have periods and stuff, sometimes there's issues with heavier flows, this, that, and the third. There's certain foods that you can eat that can make that better. There's certain things like, so when they understand the benefits of the foods earlier than later, they'll be more inclined to eat those foods and to try those foods. So I think the relationship about it is that there's so many things like also exploring their palate and having them try different things. Like say you never know, you know, until you try. So I always try to educate the girls on just, okay, these are great foods that you can have. Yes, you can have a little bit of this as well, but these are the benefits that you get from eating this all day. When you eat this, over time, this is what can happen to you.
And you know, it's wild. I have a second part to the question, but people don't realize that what they've been eating that has led to their weight gain. I'm saying it's like for you it would be like common knowledge, but people don't realize like, man, this is the reason. They just feel like it's just life, like for whatever reason.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's so tough. The environment is just very, very important because the parents don't know. Sometimes the parents don't know. They're just eating and, this is all that they knew. And so they think it's other things. They think it's stress. They think it's the kids. They have no idea that sometimes the foods is contributing to those issues. That's why I said education is very important and telling and letting people know the benefits of what they're eating. Like my sons will say in a second, Mom, the sodium in this is like way too high, kid. And, that's not, not every kid is like that. But it's because is that, and so with them, I'm like, okay, with that, you can retain a lot of water. Like I have literally explained to them one time I was bloated and they were like, well, Mom, why are you like, why is your stomach sticking out? I was like, I had a little bit too much salt. I think that was what it was. They were like, that can happen to you? I said, absolutely, it can happen to you. So once they saw that, it's like, oh, I don't want that to happen to me. So I think it's sometimes with kids literally seeing the effects of what can happen is paramount with them. Talking all day about you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that with no visual with teenagers and young girls means nothing. Showing the effects of, okay, saying, listen, if you eat this over a period of time, this is what can happen.
If you have too much salt and sugar, this is how it's gonna look like.
Right. Absolutely. So I think the younger generation right now is not for the talk. They're not for the talk. You need to show me. Give me an example. They're in a lot of ways they're brilliant in a lot of ways. Like where there were shortcomings in our generation because they were just like, you do this or else. There's more conversation that happens now with this generation where we actually explain things behind. Before it was just sort of like, okay, you do this or you die, or you know what I mean? It's now with these conversations with them, it's just sort of explaining things to them, showing things to them. That really resonates with them. And so for girls and saying, listen, if you eat this over time, this can happen to you, and actually showing a visual. Now look, with AI and all this kind of stuff, you can literally show it, but there are physical, with social media, that's where there can be great things, right? With now all these transformational weight loss journeys and stuff like that, and people and figures, which I really adore, that actually are transparent about how they got there and what they needed to do to get out of it. That is very paramount. That really resonates. And I think that that's why fitness has taken on a whole nother level on social media, because people are actually seeing it. Okay, these are the effects of what can happen when you do this.
What would you tell to the young sisters with dark skin struggling with their view of beauty?
You know what? Now is a different time. It is a different time. Black skin has become the thing, right? I think it's about, where do you seek your validation? You know, and a lot of it starts at home. A lot of it starts at home. I have twins. One is darker skinned than the other one. And I remember him saying to you, he's like, why am I look like him? And he looks like, you know what I mean? And he was like, because they mentioned it in his school. And that was the first time where he realized there was a difference. And I was just like, okay, you're still cute. He was like, yeah, I am. I said, yeah. You just, I was like, you got a little more melanin in your skin. That's all. And it was really, I said, and I was like, but you're still handsome, right? He was like, yeah, I think so too. But he had mentioned it. I said, yeah, we're just different. Sometimes, I'm sure you didn't look like him. Your skin tone wasn't. It's really about the reinforcement in the house. It's really about the reinforcement in the house. And when they don't have that, it's to really just surround themselves with greatness. You want to make sure that the people around you are also speaking life into you. And so a lot of times when I'm speaking to younger ladies, I mean, obviously they're just like, okay, mom thinks I'm beautiful, but really what hits them is their peers. And I'm like, listen, this is a tough time. I was like, listen, some people just don't know, right? And so I'm like, it's all about what you feel. And the affirmations is so important. People really downplay affirmations, looking in the mirror and speaking life into yourself. And even as adults, that can be very powerful. And so what I usually say to them with their brown, beautiful skin is that I also show them examples with these beautiful models and skin and everything else. I'm like, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful, like you're unique, giving them clear examples of how their uniqueness can make them stand out rather than hold them back. I think that for many years, blacker skin was seen as a barrier when it can be your force. It can be the one thing that sets you apart from everything else. So looking at it as something very unique, very powerful, something that stands apart. It's all about a mindset. And I think at the end of the day, even though they still have sometimes these race wars, light skin, but it's very, very different now. I think it's just making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded and also see the beauty in your skin as well. Peers are everything. Peers are everything, but surrounding yourself with greatness, making sure that the pages you follow, whatever you're doing, is supporting that, has everything to do with it. It's mindsets. People sometimes don't realize or feel that they're ugly until somebody else told them. So where's your validation coming from?
What advice would you give to black women who are trying to get back into shape after 40 and take back control of their health?
I think number one, I always say, is that you need to be informed. So you need to know where you are. So getting a physical is major. Getting your blood work done. Getting your blood work done, making sure everything is okay. And once you have that information, you could sort of work from there. A lot of times, obviously, people don't really understand how much age impacts how our body function. Things slow down. I always talk about just even how our bones start to depreciate. Certain things, collagen levels start to steadily decline. So it's very important once you find out what your levels are physically, like you get your physical done, your blood work, everything done, is based on that. It's creating a program that's realistic to your lifestyle. And so you cannot compare working out and creating a program with a 20-year-old with no children and you have four. Like that's not realistic.
Glad you brought that up because that's one of the biggest things, fight, in regards to like not understanding everyone's different situation. And even as a man, I have to realize like I'm out here working. I'm not have time to work 24/7 and have kids, this and that. But I think that comparison and not understanding your situation and doing the best you can in your situation from a realistic perspective,
Absolutely. I think we need to give ourselves grace. Because especially with the way social media is I love that people are now being more transparent with their stories, but they sort of come ready made. They have babies and they're snapped back and they're already back in shape. And I'm saying to myself, like, really? I had twins. It took me 9 months. It's people having real conversation, being honest. It's just be sincere, but also most importantly, giving themselves grace in the process. A lot of times 40-year-olds, when you get to that space, a lot of them we're like caretakers. We have multiple responsibilities. We have children, we have activities, we have sports, we have husbands. There are other duties and roles that we're playing, and we cannot compare ourselves to other individuals who don't have that same responsibility. So allowing ourselves to have grace, but also creating programs that are realistic to our lifestyle is how we can be successful in achieving our goals. Like that is the key. You're 40 years old, I'm not jumping on no boxes. I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? Like my knees don't feel the same, like there are other programs and stuff like that. I think we just need to be realistic with our circumstances, give ourselves grace, and understand that just as much as physical fitness is important in our life, rest is just as important. Mental health is just as important.
And there's one thing I want to add too with the caretaking. Our parents get older too, so you got to start taking care of your parents depending on their age.
Exactly. A lot of us, I have been blessed. Like I say, I wouldn't say I'm a wild card, but everybody in my family was active. So as we got older, we saw the benefits of that. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of our parents weren't like that, but my parents were. So, but now at this age, that is a real thing of a lot of us taking care of our parents and things like that. And those are the things, and those are the specific issues and responsibilities that we don't talk about enough. We're just talking about, okay, get into shape and everything else and find time. How do I find time when I'm doing all these other things? You know what I mean? So I think that we need to give ourselves grace along the way and just be realistic with our schedules, be realistic with our roles. Like, okay, listen, I can do this, but I can't do this. If today I can't do a 30-minute workout, I could do 10. Do 10. And that is good. That is a great start. That's what I say about giving us grace. Like I think that sometimes when we don't achieve the goal of saying, okay, well, because we are so hard on ourselves, the minute that we quote unquote slack in one area, we want to throw it all away. Grace is a big thing. Grace is a big thing. So